Good evening. I thought I'd take the time to do a little more teaching this evening. And most of my teaching is going to be out of Romans, the 7th chapter. And I'm trying to explain in a way that hopefully you can perceive it. And what we're going to talk about is the word husband and the origin of the word. And when you know that the word husband means to cultivate, to till, to manage, to conserve, when you know those things, it will make more sense. But if you don't go in the book knowing what a husband is, you won't perceive what I'm getting ready to share with you, because it wouldn't make sense to you. Because when we read the Bible, I know a lot of times we are thinking that the scriptures are talking about a natural husband and a wife. No, that's a parallel to a deeper truth. And what do I mean by that? Think, for example, that a male sperm cell and an egg, they unite in holy matrimony. And what do I mean when I say holy? Because both of them are in part until they come into unity. You get 23 chromosomes from the sperm cell, you get 23 chromosomes from the egg. So they're not whole until they unite. It's called whole. That's what holiness is, when something is complete. So that being said, the sperm cell is the egg, is the seed that bears its wheel inside of the egg. And it marries the egg, and the egg and the sperm cell become one flesh. So when you know science and you know that that's the truth, you can understand that the mind is the product of the sperm cell, but the body is the product of the egg. But the two are united in holy matrimony, meaning unity and oneness. So, and like I said, when you know science, you know that the sperm cell only has 23 chromosomes, but every human being, a normal human being, has 46. They have 23 from the male and 23 from the female, which is the mother and the father. So now, when the scripture is talking about let a man leave his father and mother and cleave unto his wife, and the two shall become one flesh, it's not talking about going to the courthouse and getting a marriage certificate. It's talking about when the sperm cell and the egg unite in holy matrimony. Like I said, holiness just means wholeness. And we take the spookiness away from it, because a lot of times when people hear things, they get all spooky with it. They say, oh, what does the word holy mean? That's why the book keeps telling you it's impossible for a man to see God without holiness. Meaning you have to have the whole understanding to see God, because God is knowledge. And you can't have knowledge without whole understanding of something. Because when your knowledge is in part, it's not whole. And that's why the book talks about we prophesying in part, because it's saying until you come to a whole understanding of what the scripture is saying, you're not whole. You're not holy. But they made holiness be some vain, foolish thing, a certain dress code. You wear long dresses. You do certain things, and that made you holy in the eyes of man. That's vain. That being said, like I said, the principle of what I'm getting ready to show you is a husband. It just means what we're using it for, the manager. So now it makes sense that the sperm cell will be the manager of the egg. Why? It gives instruction to the egg to develop what it wants to develop. So what does your mind do? It gives instructions to develop your life. So your mind is always going to be represented as your husband. That's what the scriptures is talking about. It's using the mind as the husbandman. And the body is subject to the husband in all things. But we need a new husband. What we call a renewed husband. So that's why the scripture talks about renewing the mind. Because you're getting a new husband. But before the husband can be renewed, the first husband, which is the first way you were thinking, the first mind had to die. And something had to take away the way you thought. So what we would do is call, just like the X in mathematics is always called the unknown. So they use X as an unknown. So X is also a cross when you understand the method of a cross. For example, when I don't know something and I pick up a book, my mind is intersecting with somebody else's mind. Whoever wrote the book and my mind, the two are coming in contact with each other. So it's crossing out the way I was thinking. If I accept what I came in contact with. But if I accept it, then it produces some understanding. And that's what I was teaching in another video, what is equal to what we call the Y. The WHY, but it's equal to the Y gene in the male sperm cell. But the X is what happens when you first come in contact with some new teaching of anything. Your mind intersects something that crosses. And what does it do? by you not knowing what it means. So it's going to X out the way you were thinking and give you a new way of thinking. And once it gives you a new way of thinking, it's called the resurrection. Why? Because your mind came up to the why, the reason behind what was written. Say, for example, you go to school and you want to learn what subject, say philosophy or anything, and you didn't know how philosophy worked. But as you was reading about philosophy, your old way of thinking was crossed out. So that's called the X. But it's going to produce the reason, which is the why behind it. When you're reading, every time you're reading something that you didn't know, it's going to cancel out. That's what we call it, the crucifying. It's Xing out the old thinking and giving you a new way of thinking. So when we're talking, we're not talking natural and carnal, but we're using natural precepts to try to help you understand spiritual concepts. So anytime somebody reads the Bible for the first time, they'll get the crucifixion. Their mind is coming in contact with another mind, and they're crossing one another. And if you accept this new mind, it's going to cross your mind out, your way of thinking out. It's called crucifying it, and it's going to resurrect a new mind. You know what I mean? So, and the new mind is a new understanding, because a mind is a way of thinking. But when you first go in there, you had your old way of thinking. But when you read this new information, if you accepted it, it crossed out your way of thinking and it resurrected a new way of thinking. So we call that the resurrection. But, and I say, I know it sounds kind of foreign to you, but it's actually what the scriptures are saying. But by us not having people who are students of actually what's written, we're getting caught up in the fables and in the parables and allegory stuff and never coming to the moral of what the scripture was actually saying. And I know this is going to be strange to a lot of people's ears when they hear it, but all I say is prove all things. Take some of the things that I'm sharing with you, go back, pull it up, do some research, and see if the mind is not what's leading a person to do something. So wouldn't it be called the head? Just think about what I'm saying now. And if it's called the head, think about this here. What leads you? It's your head. It's your mind. So would it not be the thing that also develops your life? If it develops your life, it would be called a husbandman, because it's the manager of your life. So it would make sense when somebody properly explains it that this is the husbandman. This mind is called the husband. Why? Because it develops and cultivates your life. That's what the word husband means. It means that which tills the earth and cultivates and manages it. What else does your mind do? It cultivates, it tills, and it preserves. It does all these things. This is where your salvation is, between your ears. This is the husbandman. But the old husbandman, the old way of thinking, can't save you. You have to let him be put to death by coming into some new knowledge. You have to crucify him by coming in contact, by bringing him in contact with a new way of thinking and exiting him out. That's what the cross represents. Two ways intersecting and crossing each other. It's going to X your way of thinking out, and it's going to resurrect a Y, WHY though, but it's equal to the Y chromosome. Just like the female, the X chromosome is equal to the cross. So that's why the church is called woman, the body of Christ. But we're not talking about a building that you go to on Sunday or whenever you might go to the building. That's not what we call the church. The church is the letter of scripture that embodies God's message. So when we say body, we're not talking about a physical body, we're talking spiritual things. But most people have not been developed spiritually, so it's hard for them to understand what spiritual means. But let me explain a little more. Knowledge is embodied in everything that's written. So the scriptures as a whole, the 66 book, is a body of thinking collectively. There are different members of this body, but it gave form to the knowledge of God. See what I'm saying? But when you look at it, you would think a temple body. But God desired a body that pleased him. And the only body that a word would have would be letters collectively and to give form to knowledge. Not a physical body, but a body of writings that gave you knowledge. So we call that the church. That's the woman. But what gave form to the woman? It was equal to the sperm cell, which is the mind. The mind of knowledge gave form to some letters to present itself so that you could see it in a way that you couldn't see knowledge. You only can see knowledge through the body that it developed so that you could see it. So every time you read the manuscripts called the scriptures, you're seeing the body that hosting the mind. That's why it's called the Lord. The mind is the Lord, but the body is the host that presents the mind of the Lord. So every time you read the scripture, you're getting the host. And that's why the Bible talked about how some of them, they start to worship the host of heaven. They start to worship the host and not God. They didn't know that the body was talking about the letter of scripture. When you reading the Bible and you just getting the physical letter without the understanding, you're worshiping the host of heaven. But you don't want to get stuck worshiping the host. You want to worship what's the host supposed to be presenting to you, which is the knowledge that the host is supposed to be giving you through the form that it took. So like I said, as I'm reading, and I'm going to read something in Romans 7th chapter, and think about everything I already shared with you, and hopefully this can give you a better understanding. Romans 7th chapter, it reads, Know you not, brethren, for I speak to them that know the law, how that the law have dominion over man as long as he live. For the one which have an husband is bound by the law to her husband so long as he live. But if her husband be dead, she is loose from the law of her husband. So it didn't say that the woman was loose from nothing but her husband. But if you don't know that the husband is talking about the mind, you didn't get it. You were thinking that somebody was talking about a physical man and woman. No, he was saying as long as you're subject to the way you were thinking, the old thinking, you bound to that until something can put a death, bring a death to that way of thinking. So he's saying the scriptures were meant to bring a death to the way you think. So it's going to kill your first husband so that you can be a candidate for a new husband, which is a new renewed mind. Not a physical husband. You know what I'm saying? Because, let's take for example, I heard preachers teach that a woman and a man, if they were married, say one stepped out on one another, they didn't want to be with each other, he's saying that you were bound by some man's law until the death of you or that person. But the scriptures don't teach that. Because the scriptures say don't add, don't take away. It never said that the woman had to be, that the woman had to be dead for the man to marry somebody else. It only said that the woman's husband had to be dead for that she could be married to another husband. But if you was looking at the scripture for what it really saying, you say, okay, why didn't he use and say that if the woman was dead, now the man can marry somebody else? Because he wasn't talking about a man and a physical woman. That's why if you add that, that's how you come up with a scripture telling people that they can't get married again. Because it never said that. It was talking about the husband always, because the husband, whether you be a male or female, you have a mind. And your mind is your husband. But the physical of what you are is the wife to the mind. But if you can't see no further than that, you start thinking that somebody went to the courthouse, you're saying, okay, now me and this woman don't want to be together. The only way I can marry another physical woman, she would have to die. Look how foolish that is. Now think about how it makes sense spiritually. Before I can have another thing managing my wife, my body, my life, my old man, my old husband, my old mind had to die so that I could get a new manager, somebody else to lead me in righteousness. But as long as my old man, my old mind is still alive, I can't be married to another mind. But think about this. It's not going to be another mind. It's going to be a renewed mind. It's going to be the same mind because it's going to be your mind. But your mind is going to be renewed, or what we might call resurrected from dead thinking. But it's the same man. But the man has to be revived from his old way of thinking. But the man is called the husband man. What man? Not my physical temple man. The man between my ears, which is called the mind. And the mind is the spirit of who you are. That is your true husband man. And anything other than that is a lie. That's not the truth. So now it makes sense that I'm bound to the law to my husband as long as he lives. So as long as the way foolish thinking is alive in me, I'm bound to that. So I need something to bring a death to that old thinking. And that's why we call it the cross. Because my man had to come in contact with another man and they had to intersect, they had to cross ways. And what happened to him? If I accepted this other man's way of thinking, it killed my man. And that's called the cross, the crucifixion. And what happened? Like I said before, it resurrected my thinking and gave me the why, the reason behind it. So, and I'm hoping that made a little sense to you, because I don't want to go too deep so that you can't comprehend it. Okay, let me go down a little further to verse 14, same chapter, Romans 7. And it reads, For we know that the law is spiritual, but I am carnal, sold under sin. So this is what he just said. He's saying the law is not talking natural. So that goes right back to the first part when he said, I speak to them that know the law. But everybody don't know the law. Because anybody who's trying to make the law be natural, they don't know the law. Because the book plainly told you that the law was spiritual. So now you think about it. Use your own intellect. If I'm a man, physical man, and I had a physical woman that I was married to, versus what I just told you. If my mind is what I'm calling the husband man, and my body is the wife, which one sounds spiritual? Does my physical man, and if I had a physical woman being a husband and wife, versus my mind and the body being in harmony with each other, in unity, that's the marriage. Which one sounds like the spiritual? And I would tell you that my mind and my body is the spiritual marriage that the scriptures are talking about. That's the one that can be put to death and still be justified. Why? Because he can be resurrected. But if you go kill a physical man, he ain't going to be able to resurrect, because that ain't what the book is talking about. You're like, but if I can kill your thinking with some more thinking that's greater than your, once you submit to it, it's called crucifixion. Why? It's going to suffocate your way of thinking and revive you to a new life. But there must be a depth to the way you think in order for you to get this new husband man. And like I said before, we're not talking about a physical husband, we're talking about a new mind. Because like I said before, I do things in repetitive terms so that you can properly comprehend it. The mind is the thing that manages and cultivates your life. That's why it's called the husband man. And if you look up the word husband, you'll see that it means to cultivate, to till, to manage. So that's why your mind is called spiritually the husband man. And the thing that husband is your life. And that's what the wife to your mind is the body. So it will make sense spiritually. But if you're thinking that God is talking about some physical man and some physical woman, that's a transgression of the law. Because now you're trying to make the law be something natural that it was never intended to be. But you do those things when you got false teaching. And you don't have no choice but to have false teaching when you're not being led by the disciplines of the scriptures. Something else has disciplined you and it is in error. That's why he said they error not knowing the scriptures, nor the power. And the power was the knowledge. Because when we talk about power, we're not talking about force, we're talking about knowledge. Knowledge is power. But until you get the knowledge of what the scriptures are saying, you have no power. We're not talking about, like I said before, force. We're talking about knowledge. So anytime somebody has knowledge of something, they have the power of that thing. So anyone who's reading the scriptures and don't have understanding, they have no power. Even though they think they have power, they don't have power. Because like I said before, knowledge is power. No knowledge, no power. So hopefully this will make you think. And somewhere down the road, like I said, I like to do a lot of different teaching. And most of what we're going to put out is going to be very controversial. But I say just like I said, prove all things. Go back, search it, do the research. I mean, just don't take for what I said or anybody else said. Do your own research. Look up these words. Look up the word husband and see if it don't mean to manage, to cultivate. And think about what I said. What else is going to manage and cultivate your life if it's not your mind? Think about it. So if your mind is not cultivating your life the proper way right now, you may need a new husband. And what am I talking about? You need a new way of thinking. And the only way you can get it, something got to kill the old way you were thinking. And it's got to intersect with another mind in order for it to happen. And that being said, till next time, be blessed.